What if we want to change the input? In the sample application that we walked through earlier, the database was the input, and it typically will be when you're in a production environment. But what about data that you want to read in from either a data file or from an XML file? How do we do that? We're going to look at that over the next series of slides. Now, if we want to run a report from a data file, what we need to concentrate on is changing that report driver. So back in our main module, previously we set it off to a report driver that ran the report from a database. Now we're going to be sending it off to where we send that handler to a run report from file. And this type of function, we're going to pass in the handler. You'll notice that we have our type, we have our handler defined, but now we need to define a channel object, and I'm just going to call it ch, and we need to define a string to contain the name of the file containing my report data. I then let my data file equal to what that file is, so in this case it's a .unl file containing my data, and then I need to go through the process of creating a channel, opening that file, starting the report to my report handler, and now instead of using a cursor to loop through rows in a table, I'm using my channel read to read in the lines one by one and output it to my report. Once I'm complete, I finish my report and I close my channel and I can close out my function. So the next few slides we're going to talk about using an intermediate XML data stream. Now, why would you want to consider using a data stream? Well, does your existing application save reports for reprinting? What if you want to reprint the report in a different format? How long does it take you to create your data? If it takes a while to extract the data from a database, you may want to hit that database only once and create your intermediate XML data stream, and then use that data stream to actually run your reports. And each time you run the report, you have to reset configuration flags. Perhaps creating an XML data stream will mean that your printed flags don't have to be continually reset. And each time you run a report, you have to enter in new data. You can get all your test configurations into one XML data stream. So if you're using an XML data stream, one of the reasons why is you just have found it easier not to go and hit that database each time. Instead, hit that database, extract it into an XML data stream file, and then use that XML data stream file as the input for your report application and your printing of reports. So the best practices for creating this XML data stream, first you're going to be creating two applications. The first application is going to generate the XML data file, and the second application is going to be using that XML data file to create the report. And why are we doing this? Again, you want to hit the database once. You can repeatedly run the second application against the XML data file once that data file is created. In development environments, this means that you don't necessarily have to be connected to the database. You can create that XML data file once, and then the developer can take, or the report designer can take that XML data file, take that report application, the second report application, and use it to generate the reports and test that their report design is effective. So how do we output the report to an XML data file? How do we create that first application? The new thing here is, instead of starting a report to create an XML document, we're going to let my handler equal to FGL report create process level data file, and then we pass in a data file name. Now when we start the report to this XML handler, it's going to go ahead, instead of sending it across to the general report engine, it's going to go and create that process level data file. Here's a quick example of outputting this XML data stream and saving it as a data file. You'll see when I call my run report to handler, in my run report to handler function, I still have my type definition being used to define the data. I still have my handler. I have my declare statement where I go and I select my data. So it's still processing the data. It's just this time I'm letting my handler equal to FGL report, create process level data file, provide an XML file name, and then I start my report to the XML handler. Now as it loops through, it's going to write it out to this test file, and that's where it's going to end. So in the second application, we have our XML data file created. How are we going to use it as input into my report? After I do the work to let my variable equal to my commit current settings, this time I'm going to call the report with the function FGL report run report from process level data file, passing in the name of both my handler variable and passing in the name of the XML file. Again, here's a quick example showing the second application. I'm still defining my handler, but it's only this time when I get down, I load my current settings. I can do my select device, my select preview. Then I let my handler equal to my FGL report commit current settings, and I run it using the FGL report run report from process level data file, passing in both my handler and the name of the XML file that contains the data. This ends the presentation on creating the report application. If you have lab exercises in the system available, you can now do the lab exercises for Chapter 3. As far as having a lab exercise that works with that intermediate XML data stream, those lab exercises you will find when you get to Module 10.